Hi, Peter Charles here, Folks for Life Fly Fishing. And today let's look at something a little different. Okay, we're going to talk about both the idea of best practices and breaking best practices. In this case, swimming nymphs. When we've talked about nymphing techniques and other techniques, we've concentrated on dead drifting. Pounded away on dead drifting. You've got to make sure your dry fly or your wet fly or your nymph is drifting with the current. And here I'm going to show you a bunch of footage of me catching fish swinging the nymph. So in other words, I've dead drifted for a while, then I've swung it out. Now, some of you may have heard the term a lasering lift. And what that means is at the end of our drift, whether we're under an indicator or not, it doesn't matter, is we lift the rod up a couple of times like this rather slowly, and what that causes that nymph to go up and down, especially if it's a weighted nymph. It'll drop quite quickly. And the reason for that is pretty simple. When you have mayflies that are emerging, the nymph swims to the top, and floats to the top because their skin fills with gas. So they float to the top, then they try to swim back down, float back up, try to swim back down because they want to get down in the rocks. They don't want to be up there, but they don't have a choice because their skin is inflated with gas. So they float up, go down. So when you're doing that up and down motion, that's what you're imitating. So let's see how that worked out with a little bit of footage here. Okay, here I'm following the rules, dead drifting a nymph. This is contact nymphing or Euro nymphing. And you can see by the angle of my leader, I am dead drifting when the fish hits. And then I go on to land the little guy. So here, I was following the rules, doing what I was supposed to. So here's some more footage of where I'm contact nymphing, but I'm not following the rules. I'm allowing my fly to swing out at the end, and I'm getting fish. So here I am just making a cast, and leading my nymphs downstream as you would expect when contact nymphing, and just as I'm starting to swing that fly out, bang, the little guy hits. Same run, different fish, same issue. As soon as I begin to tighten up and swing the fly, the fish hits. As soon as it starts to move. It shows you in this particular case the fish wanted a moving fly. A little further downstream, doing exactly the same thing, swinging the fly out, bang, another fish on. You can see all these fish are hitting well downstream of me. They are not hitting directly across where the fly would be dead drifting. Now this fish hits almost dead drift downstream of me. It's a nice fish and it gets off, but it just goes to show that you don't always have to follow the rules. So keep an eye out for emerging insects and don't be afraid to swing a nymph. Okay, we can see there that despite the fact best practices say to dead drift a nymph, it's not always true. Especially if you see any kind of emergence going on, a moving nymph may actually get more action than a dead drifting one. It's something to keep in mind when you're out fishing, that is, all those best practices we talk about can be thrown out the window when circumstances dictate that that's what you should do. I mean, you have to go into your fishing situation with your mind open and saying, okay, I'm going to dead drift, and suddenly go, I'm not getting anything, but there's activity all over the place. How about if I move it? Bam. Be surprised how often that happens. So yes, dead drift by all means, but if you're starting to see activity, you're starting to see bugs coming off, often it's the swimming nymph that will get the hit rather than the dead drifting one. So keep that in mind. Cheers.